Hi, welcome to How to Be a Humane Leader Without Losing Your Job. We're here to chat about humane leadership in a way that's real and relatable to tackling work-life challenges and offering practical advice to navigate tough decisions. Whether you're leading a team or navigating your own career, we got you covered. I'm Roberto Torres, a startup engineer leader, and with me is Chris Olekin, a Fortune 100 IT leader. We'll dive into the real world stuff, share experiences, and offer guidance on leading with compassion while keeping your career on track. Today, we will discuss how even a humane leader can fall under the flaws of favoritism. Hi, Chris. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Roberto. I'm doing great. You doing well, I hope?
Yes, I am. You and
You
I
are
trust
my
it.
favorite podcaster, but I will judge you fairly.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that.
But it is hard, right? It's not always easy to be fair. Sometimes we do have favorites, maybe people we enjoy being with, coworkers that we enjoy being with more than others. We got to be careful with that as humane leaders.
Yeah, indeed, because we are humans in the end. And we commit faults, errors, flaws, etc. And the thing is, we might not see this coming, but it might happen. Let's say, for instance, in our previous company, a few years ago, I had a number of engineers, and suddenly I had to hire an intern. So I began interviewing many different interns, and suddenly this guy, excuse me, came. And this guy was the same as me during the interview. And I hired him because of his hard skills, culture, etc. And during his time within the company, I felt close to him because we were so much alike. And suddenly, certain decisions I favored him. And it was this kind of bias, which you might not recognize, but the other team members would, and would say, "Oh my God, this is Roberto's son," because he's favorite him. So yeah, I think we have no, we have not. It's not the proper word, but we must first of all recognize this kind of bias and avoid it.
Absolutely. And you mentioned something I think that's really critical in that sometimes your direct reports can help correct you if you're listening carefully, right? So they were using maybe a little bit of sarcasm. Oh, it's Roberto's son, because it's a younger worker, right? He's not maybe out of college yet, or depending on your business, might even be in high school. Might only be 16 or 17 years old intern.
Mhm.
And they made a joke. Oh, it's Roberto's son. He's getting special treatment, and they say it in a joking way, ha ha ha. Except they actually mean it, right? And sometimes a leader who's not really reflecting like they should, and we've talked about this as humane leaders, one of the key things we do is reflect about the day, the week, the month. How did we do? Did we interact with our team and other people in the company the way that we feel good about how our interactions went? And then you start to realize, hold it, they were being kind of sarcastic that this intern was Roberto's son, and am I doing something I shouldn't be doing? And lo and behold, you may reflect and recognize that, I give the intern the better assignments, the more interesting things to do. The intern gets the favorable seat at the table when we're having a discussion to debate the best solution for something. Right at sometimes I'm right-handed, so lots of times you like to put your favorite person to your right at a
Mm.
table. Those kinds of things. And if you don't reflect, right, you're not a humane leader, so you don't reflect and you don't think about how your interactions have gone over the last couple of days, weeks, or months. You may not catch it. You may not catch that sarcasm where your team is actually trying to help you. They're trying to help you be fair and unbiased, because favoritism It can start off as something as simple as you laugh louder at their jokes than other team members, but it grows, right? If you don't correct it, it starts to grow, and now you give them the better performance review, right? Because that time is coming up, right? A lot of companies do performance reviews at the end of the year, and you start to, oh man, this intern's the greatest intern we've ever had. He likes all the same music I do. Well, hold it. That doesn't have anything to do with your programming job.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
start to reflect on those things.
Yeah. And one thing is, how could we human leaders detect this kind of pattern in ourselves? I think that when we have this kind of bias, it might be difficult.
Yes,
If
very.
you don't have a proper training, if you have a proper training, you will detect this previously, or you will understand it when it happened and you will correct it. But if you had this proper training, you might do this exercise. Imagine that, I don't know, you close your eyes and suddenly there's, you see yourself outside out of you and you see the actions and you think in an unbiased way. You observe what you do, what you say, how do you interact with someone else, and then you will understand if you're using favoritism with someone or you don't. And the thing is, when I mention team members, is because these team members might be the ones that you have the reports. It might be your peers, your customers, your leader, actually. And they will see you. And it's important for you to understand in like a compass, north, south, east, and west. Everybody is looking at you. So you must act correctly and you must do good, not to go with this way. Because um, being in a favoritism might be doing something wrong for the company because maybe you have a decision, a business decision, and someone which you have a favoritism, and they might not know all the context and everything, might influence you and impact you in a decision that might crumble the company, you know?
Yep. Correct, correct. And one of the tricks that I would do occasionally, specifically around performance reviews and favoritism, right, is and every company's performance review is different, but they usually have some basic things where you talk about, hey, these are your strong areas, these are areas you need to develop. And one of the things that I would do to try and stay unbiased, not show favoritism, is think about the things that I'm going to tell Roberto. These are your areas for improvement, 1, 2, and 3. But I would do my best to take those 3 things and now think about them across. Maybe I have 8 or 10 other team members that I'm doing performance reviews for. Take those 3 things and can I say them about the other people? And think about, am I being fair? Hey, I'm telling Roberto this is something you absolutely have to address. Yet hold it. These 3 other people do the same, and I don't ever critique them on it. Or, hey, I'm really praising Roberto for this and this. But I look at my other team members and they all do it more and I'm not praising them for it. This is a way to try and objectively think about looking at the things you're putting in your performance review for a team member, and then take them and look at the other team members using that same description and say, am I fairly saying these things about Roberto when I have to compare them to Stephen and Mary and Larry and Susan and so on? And it will help you maybe judge, are you applying your criteria equally along the team? Because favoritism is sneaky. It starts off with very simple things. Wow, Roberto's got the same interest in movies. So now I spend a little more time with you talking about the weekend and what movie did you see at the theater? And I don't spend that time evenly with the other team members. So now we've developed a little more rapport. So favoritism generally doesn't happen instantly. It's
No?
something typically that will happen over time. And it's, you got to balance it. It's good to have work friendships. It builds a stronger bond, but you have to be really careful when they're in your team and they report to you that it isn't favoritism versus friendship.
Yeah. Yeah, totally, indeed. And the thing is, there are many different kind of bias, and we might fall into one of those categories of bias or several, and we might not know because it is not something that we might be aware immediately, as you mentioned. There might be something that we are binded to this person, this team member, that we might see it normal, or we might see it, yes, normal would be the word, but it falls directly into bias. You mentioned something that music or movies, you know, but what about the road that you have taken in life? Maybe, oh, this guy used to work in this, had to study this one. I spent my youth like this one, so I feel compelled to help this guy or this lady I think that yes, indeed, we require training, and if the company doesn't provide that bias training, maybe we had to look at Udemy, Coursera, YouTube. I don't know, something that experts have, and you must listen and you must study, because this is something that could affect us in any age within our lifespan, and it could go from younger to older, but it could go not only at work, it could go in our personal life. And I mean that that is not the correct nor the proper path to walk.
I completely agree. Completely agree. And figuring out, different ways what works for you to detect it isn't going to be the same for everybody in every work situation, right? So I mentioned some of the things around performance reviews as a way to show bias, but that only works if you're actually doing performance reviews for some of these people. You can have bias amongst your peers too, right? Where
Hmm.
you don't do a performance review, they're your peers. But do you notice that you spend a lot more time with Jerry because you get along with him, right? Versus Steve because you don't, just whatever, you just don't mix well. So then when you're debating the best solution, do you always discount Steve, even though Steve may be smarter and may have really good ideas? So this bias, you have to really think about what's going to work best for you to help you detect the bias, because we will all have some. We're humans. We're humane leaders. We have flaws. The trick is recognize them and do your best to reflect and correct them. And
Yeah.
so, it could be in the peer situation, maybe just think about it in terms of total time. How often in the course of a 5-day work week, how often are you talking with one peer versus the other peer on non-work related stuff? And you may realize, wow, I talked to Roberto maybe 2-3 hours a week on non-work related stuff, and the rest of my peers, it's maybe 15 minutes.
Hmm.
I might be a little biased towards Roberto. Maybe when Roberto makes a suggestion for how to do something at work, I always think it's brilliant because we get along so well, but maybe my bias is in there, and maybe Roberto's only correct half the time and not 99.9999%.
Yeah. It's not also there are too many things that to happen. Let me tell you something that it is a joke, but it will help anybody, excuse me, to detect if they are doing a favoritism. A son asks his dad, "Hey dad, do you have between my brother and I, do you have favoritism?" And his dad answered, "Between you and my champ?" So
That's
it,
exactly it. That's exactly it. I guess that dad's totally fair.
yeah, and because they see it normal, because they see it that it is good. And the thing is, imagine that you are the brother, that you are the one who asked that. How would you feel? So I think that also the thing for us to change, either a human leader or won't, is to understand that you might not be the recipient of the good stuff. You might be of the bad ones. How would you feel? How would you react? Because you brought a new idea to your leader. Hey, we're going to do this, and these are all the benefits. And suddenly your leader or your boss assigns that project to his or her favorite guy. So we must understand that we should be in the other side of the coin.
Yes.
And to avoid that. And when I mean avoid, you cannot maybe do it with your leader because he's in the favoritism side of this. But if you manage to recognize and overcome bias, it might spread to other people within the company.
Yes. Well, and if you see that your coworker is the one who's getting all the favoritism, one of the things that you can do is ensure that you have a good relationship with the favorite, right? So that if you have some project you really want to work on, if you have a decent relationship with that coworker, right? Maybe you have a boss instead of a humane leader, right? You got a boss instead of a humane leader above you. Maybe you can convince the favorite to help support you in that, look, I really want to work on this database acceleration project. And the person who's getting favored is like, I'm not interested in that actually. So good. Well, can you help me convince, Roberto, that I should really do this project and not you? So when it comes up in a team meeting on who should work on it, support me. Sometimes you can be that open. Maybe you don't use the word favoritism, right? You don't want the boss to necessarily feel like you're going behind his back, but in building a relationship with whomever is being favored, sometimes you have to kind of get the boss to recognize it through other means, which is get some of your coworkers to help support you, that you do have some good ideas, you have key things that you can contribute the best on, and have the team support you, and that will help persuade the boss to be more fair over time, hopefully. Now, sometimes a boss is just a boss that's a boss, right? We've all had them. We've talked about this before. There's only so much that the employee can do to coach a boss to be a humane leader. And sometimes you just realize it's never going to happen. I don't know how many times you try it. Every situation is different. You got to try it at least a few times to teach the boss to be a humane leader. But ultimately, sometimes it means, what, Roberto's getting so favored by Chris that, I'm just never going to be successful in this team. So I'm just going to have to go to a different team, maybe in the same company, maybe in a different company. I think in many of the discussions we've had as humane leaders, every employee ultimately has to decide if that situation can be made to be workable. Can you survive in that environment? If it's truly a bad boss and he's just totally favoring somebody else, ultimately it could lead to you can't be successful in that environment. But most of the time it's not. Most of the time favoritism is just a little bit of bias. And I think that by using some of these techniques that we've talked about, it will help you manage the situation, hopefully improve the situation. And eventually that boss becomes a humane leader and recognizes that bias and tries to be more fair to everybody. That's the hope, right?
Yeah, indeed, and true in your words. I think I'm thinking right now of some bosses that I had that I tried to overcome their bias, and it was like running through a wall. Maybe at the first time you didn't. think about this. The second, it hurts. But the third one, no, I'd rather not. And I understand. I understand. That's why we are humilators, because we understand from outside what we're doing correct and what we're not doing. And we change in order for us to be a better humilators for our team. So I think that is the purpose of that.
Without a doubt. It's that reflection. It's that inward reflection of saying, I want to be better. I've got to be doing something better. What should I do better? And it applies to so many topics in humane leadership. And I think it's just that philosophy of self-improvement will help you recognize some of these things like favoritism, and that hopefully you set your goals to at least do less, right? At least that is an improvement. You will probably always have some favoritism to some degree, but try and have less and be, fair to all your team members, especially at performance review time like this time of year.
Yeah, actually. And just to wrap up this episode, humane leader is not about a very few topics. It is about life in a humane sense. So we have a vast number of different topics and different situations and many different things that other people, like bosses, want to neglect and doesn't want to try. But we have an upper perspective that we always try to strike.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good point.
Great. Well, it was a nice topic, and I will see you next time.